Take it away. Don Foster, make sure you're
You're
unmuted.
on mute.
All right, now, how about now? Great. Welcome everybody to 1 Million Cups. It's great to have everybody here Wednesday at 9:03. We are here at 1 Million Cups for another exciting meeting Wednesday morning. So 1 Million Cups is brought to you by the Kauffman Foundation, which works with communities around the country to help to promote entrepreneurship and education, really to help promote and increase opportunities, allowing people to learn and to help them take risks and to get to their own success. There are about 120 chapters around the country. And so they are both, so it's both a local and nationwide organization. And so here we are, the Fairfax chapter. A couple things to keep in mind. The key pillars of 1 Million Cups. We are presentations, not pitches, which is going to point to some education. We are about authentic connections, and I'm going to say organic networking, not networking per se. And we are run by the community and for the community. The other thing, which is also really cool about this organization, we are radically and intentionally inclusive. So I know we've got a number of visitors. I'm really excited about a couple of folks that have showed up who I had the opportunity to talk to. So with that, I can't see everybody on the screen, but let's go ahead. If you'd raise your hand and just give us your name, your company, and how you heard about us. And I'm going to jump to DJ because I know DJ's new today.
Yeah, so thanks, John, for the invite. So John did invite myself. So I'm DJ Flores. I'm a fractional sales executive for the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce.
Awesome. And who else do we have? Anybody? I can't see. Anybody else new? All right.
Dr. Jane and
Oh, thank
Robbie.
you.
I'm Dr. Jade Martinez. I am a chiropractor with Optimum Wellness. We provide mobile chiropractic care, acupuncture, massage therapy all throughout Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So we bring everything to your home so that you can feel good through dry needling, cupping, massage therapy without having to leave your house. Thanks for having me. This is my first 1 Million Cups, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And who else do we have?
My name is Prabmeet Kohli. I have a company called Novamorph where we provide digital transformation services to small and mid-sized businesses. Anything from data strategy to AI, anything you need to understand how your business process needs to be efficient and improve your productivity, we do that. And located in Virginia. So thank you for that. This is my second meeting. The first meeting I attended halfway through, so I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. So thank you for doing this.
Wonderful. Let's see, Tawana.
Hello. So I'm not really new. I'm just returning. I've been in a year-long coaching that was at 9 o'clock. So it's over and I'm so excited to be back and to do this. So I am executive career coach with Tawana Carter Professional and Personal Coaching. And in light of all of the upheaval that's going on with some corporations, but certainly with the federal government, I am also offering a series of 8 masterclasses that are aimed at helping folks tune in how to transition their careers. I know as someone who left the military to go to corporate was like a fish out of water. It is difficult when you haven't had to do those things. So there'll be everything from, creating career plans to learning how to brand, to figuring out what your transferable skills are and matching them to corporate, to entrepreneurship if you choose, or to another nonprofit. So I'll put some information out there on how to contact me.
Great, thank you. And that's a great reminder for everybody to take advantage of the chat, to put your information in chat throughout the meeting would be great. Anybody else? All right. If I missed anybody, we can always pick somebody up at the end as well. So with that, oh, please, please, please check in. The QR code is on the screen. We really appreciate everybody checking in because it does give us the opportunity to get swag and stuff from 1 Million Cups. And so we're working to continue to increase our attendance. So please check in there. And you can see we're gradually increasing our attendance, which is great. With that, this doesn't happen by magic. We've got a bunch of organizers. Several of us are in the room. We've got the organizing team, and we also have the brand ambassadors. The other thing I'll mention is we have a couple of partners as well, Veterans Growing America and the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Also, once again, you'll see that QR code. Please take advantage of that as we go throughout the meeting. All right. Okay, we are celebrating in the month of February our 6th anniversary. And with that, we are recognizing past presenters and attendees each week. And John Rutenberg, I think, is our presenter for this. John?
So it's my great pleasure and an honor to highlight Michael Butera. And I saw that he's in the room. He just waved. Michael is a specialist. He's a strategic planner and focuses his attention on nonprofits and commercial businesses. So he sits on both sides of organizations, helping executives think about the future rather than get stuck in the past. In his contribution to 1 Million Cups, he's been a presenter, he's come back, and he's attended. Now, he happens to be a personal friend, so he has some bad judgment among who he picks as his friends. Having said that, spend time with Michael. He's a wonderful individual, and he's a credit to 1 Million Cups. He makes us better. Thank you, Michael. Happy anniversary to 1 Million Cups.
Thank you, John and Michael. All right, with that, we do have a couple of sponsors. We have a location sponsor where we meet the first Wednesday of every month. And Jen, do you want to touch on that?
Sure thing. So George Mason Enterprise Center in Fairfax is our location host. We're excited to collaborate with them. They're just off of 66. We meet there on the first Wednesday of each month when we have our hybrid meeting. It's a great training room space, so there's plenty of room. Please do join us on Wednesday. What's unique about the MEC, they have fantastic programming for business owners and entrepreneurs. Today, they're doing the 5 Ps about podcasting with Dumi Mapena, who's a past presenter. And then in March, they're doing a 4-class series on exit planning for your business. So if you're thinking about in the future what that might look like, don't miss these classes. They're with Wayne Zell. Thank you, Siri, for chiming in. And so what I would recommend is go to MEC-Fairfax and check out their website. I'll put a link to it in chat. If you're interested in being a virtual member, you can do that. If you're interested in having office space that can grow with your business or shrink as needed based on what's happening in the DC area, which is often pretty chaotic at the moment, they can be a really great partner. They also have 18 dedicated mentors who can help you as you navigate the GovCon space or other business challenges. So again, check them out. I'll put a link there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to James Lawson because today's all about James Lawson.
As it should be. Listen, you know what? Let's miss this. You're going to get a whole thing about Impact Business Solutions when I get into my presentation, guys. So I'm happy to skip this and we can move on.
Awesome. Thank you, James. One more reminder, use the QR code in the lower right-hand corner to check in. The other thing, just to remind everybody about that in-person meeting at the George Mason Enterprise Center, which is that first Wednesday of the month. If you're in the DC area, it would be great to have you show up in person. All right, with that, how our meetings work, for those of you that are new, it is relatively simple. We do ask that you keep your mics on mute. We also ask that this is a supportive, positive group, so we ask that you keep your comments and things supportive as well. What we'll do is James is going to go through and do a presentation, and then we will have a moderator. Is that Melinda? Melinda's a moderator, and so Melinda will take over and then call on people to ask James questions and make any comments. So with that, we are here for the presentation, and here's James Lawson, Impact Business Solutions. I'm going to stop sharing, James.
Thanks, John. Can I just ask everyone that for this presentation, make sure your view is on speaker view. So the top right-hand corner, rather than gallery, move it to speaker view, and just make sure everyone is muted, or else we're going to keep bouncing from me to somebody else. And that's never good. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. This is the first time I've actually presented my company. I've done a couple of presentations for 1 Million Cups, and I've actually been involved with 1 Million Cups off and on for a while, when we were actually meeting in person in Tyson's Corner. So yeah, this is the first time I've had a chance to actually present my company and what we're doing and how we're evolving and try and get some help and guidance. So yeah, let's all jump in. So here's a challenge question. We are in the process of adding an additional service to our company, which is going to be fractional sales. And I heard DJ talk about he's a fractional sales guy for some other organizations. And so this is not a new thing in the industry, but it's certainly a new thing for us in terms of looking at it and identifying where we might be able to play. But this is the question we've got, is how can we identify and build an effective pipeline of potential new prospects for fractional director of sales services in what is effectively a brand new market for us. And you'll understand why it's brand new as we go through this. So a little bit of background. I'm actually part of a husband and wife team. That's my wife, Angela. We came out of corporate, right? So back in 2009, when corporate decided they didn't want us anymore, we decided we'd go into and start our own business. But we had 25 years running sales and marketing teams. Me, but obviously back in the UK, since I've got this really horrible Scottish accent. And so I spent a good deal of my time literally building and then running what we call high performance sales teams. So that's my background. Well, that was in the technology industry, right? So I worked in the hard drive industry. I worked in the printed circuit board industry. I worked in the network industry, working with clients like Dell and back in the day, Compaq, Hewlett Packard, Toshiba, 3Com, you name it. I've basically worked with all of them at some point. I calculated I've actually generated over $1.5 billion in total sales during that time, right? So these were not teams making a couple $100,000 a year in sales. They were multi-million-dollar teams that we built and ran. And today we run our own coaching and consulting business, right? But we specialize in marketing and sales for early stage businesses. So for us, in our world, an early stage business has nothing to do with the amount of time that they've been in business. It's to do with revenue. And the revenue number for us is less than $500,000 a year. That's what we consider early stage. Now, everyone's got their own version of what a small business is. In our world, that's what we call an early stage business. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So a little bit about how we, or where we came from and what the company's kind of been evolving through. So we actually opened in 2009, and we were part of a franchise. So we bought a franchise because we were stupid. And we put a lot of money into that. And it was actually okay. But the franchise was called Advocoach, and it was part of a number of other franchises under one umbrella. And then around about 2014, we decided that it really wasn't working for us. And so we left the franchise, we went independent. And we, decided we'd call ourselves Impact Business Solutions. And from that, we created a brand called Business Success by Design. That was very intentional. Reason being is that we just have a really deep belief that as you start a business and as you grow a business, the best way to create success is actually design it in at the beginning. It's not a hope strategy. It's how do you design success in a business? And our whole framework for our business and for what we work with our clients on is all about designing it from the ground up. Like that's the ball game. You design it, you know exactly where you want to go, then you reverse engineer it, and then you design it from the ground up. So that's kind of how the philosophy works for us. We have clients here in the US, we've got clients in the UK, and believe it or not, we've actually got a couple of clients in Australia, which is great for coaching calls. And so this is a biggie. So in 2025, we're adding this new fractional service as part of our portfolio. It's certainly something that we're in the early stage of researching and looking at and trying to develop, which is why, I'm doing this, guys. But that's where we're going. And it kind of makes sense for us to do that based on the background that we have. Right, so let's talk about the business challenge that we solve as a fractional executive. As businesses move from a start to grow, we look at start, grow, scale. That's the 3 phases of a business. But as they move from start to grow, generally, right, they're going to lack a clear or scalable sales strategy, right? And they've got a problem with leadership driving the predictable revenue growth. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what it is. That's the challenge they have. Excuse me. So what are the top 5 things that we look at, or we're going to help them solve? Inconsistent sales performance is one. Underdeveloped or uncoached sales teams is a biggie. Undefined or inefficient sales processes, lack of strategic leadership, and then poor hiring and retention of sales talent. These are usually, not always, but usually the top 5 things that in a business we would identify as being, these are your barriers to growth. These are the things that are stopping you getting to the next step in your evolution. It's not everything. It's just the top 5. So let's talk a little bit about how Impact Business Solutions generates revenue like today. This is what the business looks like. So we have online programs, right? We have a DIY program and we've got a membership program that really small businesses can jump into, but they're basically on their own, right? They get weekly or bi-weekly deliverables of trainings. They have access to a complete suite of strategies that they can avail themselves of, but they're basically on their own, right? There's not really any coaching involved in that. Then we have a group coaching program, but that is specifically niched for other coaches and consultants. So very, very specific for that environment. It's not business agnostic, highly focused. Then we've got our one-to-one coaching. So this is business agnostic. We focus on sales and marketing from a foundational and strategic standpoint, but generally we're working with businesses that are doing less than 500K a year. That's a really nice sweet spot for us in that business. And that's where we've kind of focused our time. Now, to the right of that is a new fractional sales, right? This is a new market entry for us. I know what we need to do and I know what we want to try and get from it. The challenge is how do we actually get there? So that's today. So tomorrow, not tomorrow, but going forward, we will probably drop the online, the DIY membership stuff. We'll probably drop that. We'll probably drop the group coaching thing because those 2 things only really represent about 15% of our total revenue overall. And it makes sense for us if we're going to focus on fractional sales to divert our time, our effort, and our resources to kind of managing that versus worrying about this stuff over here, if it's such a small part of the business. The idea is in the fractional side, guys, is to get between 4 and 5 clients running consecutively, each client doing 10 to 15 hours a month. And if we can get to that, that's a $250,000 business plus, just that piece. And it's going to take conservatively 50 hours a month, maybe up to 80 hours a month, depending on what the thing looks like in terms of hours. But that still leaves James plenty of time to do the things that James wants to do for fun, like play golf and other things. So it's kind of cool. I like it. It's a good model. So let's talk about the offer, the client, and the value, all right? What this kind of looks like for us. And again, I want to stress, we're in the early stage of this, and some of this hasn't been fleshed out completely, which is why I'm here, right? So hopefully you guys will help me figure some of this stuff out. So here's the offer, right? The ability to scale sales in a predictable and profitable way while building a high-performance sales organization without the financial burden of a full-time staff member. That's really, really important. Especially in today's climate, right? So a lot of businesses today, it's not new, but it's becoming exponentially more important to have that level of flexibility, right? To be able to push and pull if needed, but also to know that you don't have this massive expense burden of a full-time employee. So that's the offer. Again, a little bit general, we'll tighten that up. Who's the ideal client? A growth-oriented company who generates at least 5 million in annual revenue. So we like that 5 million is kind of the number we think, but we're not 100% sure. There's got an existing sales team. Maybe they lack the leadership, the strategy, and the structure to scale. They recognize that they've got a need for a senior sales leadership, but they're not ready or willing to invest in a full-time VP of sales. And they also want to scale revenue 20-50%. So, and then the value is, basically expert sales leadership without the burden, proven sales frameworks, flexible and cost-effective, and immediate execution. That's a biggie, right? They don't have a long hiring process to make this thing work. A little bit about the methodology. We've built this out and we're still refining this as well. Not really that important right now, but I want to make sure it was there. So here's what the fractional market looks like real quick. So in 2020, there was like 1,200 people who recognized themselves or identified as a fractional executive. In 2024, it's closer to 75,000. There's been a massive jump in this market, mainly because of the Great Resignation. A lot of executives moving out of corporate and they're setting themselves up in this space. Generally, you're going to have like 5 functions: CMO, a CFO, a CIO, a COO, and then the CSO, which is where we're going, right? Which is Chief Sales Officer, right? But the market is basically dominated by CMOs and CFOs. Like that's the 2 biggies. The challenge for us is from a competition standpoint, isn't the number of people in the market, it's the mindset of businesses who still think they need a full-time VP or sales director. So it's trying to find the ones that don't think like that and pull them out. That's the real challenge. Here's how it kind of shakes up, right? We've got nearly half the market between CMO and CFO. And as you can see, the CSO is only about 12% of the total market right now. So we're trying to overcome a mindset challenge as well as anything else. But, the figure, according to Deloitte, this figure is going to go from 25 to 35%. So it's going up. It's going up. There's a lot of potential in this. So that's where we are, right? That's where we are. So the challenge is, based on everything I've just shown you, is how do I identify and build this pipeline? We definitely have some ideas, right, from the work that we've been doing in other areas, but I am always open to new ideas and new suggestions around this. And I don't know that it's a feasibility study, guys. I think we know the market exists. It's how do we tap into it in a way that kind of makes sense. So thank you for your time. And I am now open for questions and guidance and critique.
That was an outstanding presentation, James. Can't wait to hear all the questions and ideas for you. For everybody, it's the usual way. Put your hand up and I will call on you. If you're not sure, I've seen you put something into the chat. Actually, if you want to summarize what you say afterwards, we'd really appreciate it. And keep your answers or your questions brief so that we can have a lot of input for James. With that, I see Amy's hand up right away. Go ahead, Amy.
I wanted to jump in quick. James, thank you for the presentation. That was great. One question, and it may build on the challenge question itself. It sounds like your past performance is primarily based on companies with under 500,000 in revenue. And so one thing I think would be a gap that you need to be really clear with is if you're going to jump to the 5 million plus revenue, as your target market, how are you showing your specific benefits, your creative differentiators in that?
Is that, I'm so sorry, is that the question, Amy, or is it a statement? Sorry.
We can take that as a statement.
Okay, yeah, for sure. There's definitely a gap, right? And if you notice the offer value slide I showed, I didn't have differentiation in there because we're still trying to figure that part out, how we actually word that. But yeah, it's well taken. Thank you.
Next, we've got Jen Dalton.
James, two audiences I might think about, given the space you're focusing in, and it may be in the top end of that revenue cap, but maybe talking with EOS consultants, the book Traction. So Sam Bryson, for example, who in the past, but they don't provide this, but they are looking for people who help provide these services. So they might be a good resource. I would also look at VC companies who are looking to insert a team in the short term to help companies scale, which will probably be more in the dollar range you're talking about. But those might be two groups to consider. I have some other thoughts, but I'll love to let others go, then I'll circle back.
No, thanks. That's great, Jen. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Next, we've got John Foster.
You're on mute, John.
Yeah, let me try to unmute now. I think I've got to learn that unmute button. So I love the presentation, James. And Jen, I was thinking about the consultants as well. The other question I had, James, is I know you're talking about fractional sales. Is there, based on your, what you've done so far, industries that you're, going to tend to focus on? Because I know one of the things is, are there industries that you're particularly interested in, or just sales generically?
So if I were coaching me, I would tell me to go and find a niche.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
to kind of focus on, whether it may be technology companies, which is basically where the background is. The skill set historically has always been where there have been longer sales cycles. Versus kind of one and done, like getting in and sales done in maybe a week or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's one of these things, John, and I appreciate that's a great question, because one of the things we're looking at is, where do we want to plant ourselves? Like, where do we want to actually just insert ourselves into? And whether it is just sales, I mean, that's fine, but it's really the building of the teams. It's really the strategy, right? That kind of thing is kind of where the skill set really lies.
Yeah.
And so finding those companies with that deficiency is the hard part, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, but finding a niche, and it may well develop to be technology type companies that we kind of look at, which is where I'll probably be more comfortable. But yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we've got John Rutenberg.
So James, thank you so much. Great presentation. Really appreciate you thinking through your business. In the Metro DC area, a major industry is government contracting. There are tons of companies that meet your profile. 3 million, 5 million sounds arbitrary. 3 million means there's that many more of them. And I wonder, one of the barriers is, gosh, not only can I afford a full-time guy, how the hell can I afford a fractional person? Because it's still a burden. So I wonder if part of the pitch going in is to actually make the first set of sales. Because here I am at 3-4 million bucks trying to make it to the next level. And particularly if I'm the nerdy engineer who hates sales, okay, that's the perfect place to be a compliment. But I'm trying to get, my pressure is to get to the next level. And so I'm more attracted to someone who's going to make sales than someone who's going to build my team. You can build my team second, but make my next sale to pay for your salary. And maybe that's a pitch in.
Right. So can I just quick go back to the number? So the number is completely arbitrary because I've got no idea. Right. But so one of the things we want to be really clear about is, I'm not going in there to make sales for people. They've already got a team. They're already in a mode of growth, right? But there's a nexus point, right, where investing in full time is still a little bit too much of a burden for them financially, but they need someone to come in strategically to help them kind of build out their processes and et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we're saying it's not the easiest thing to identify, right? And so, but I absolutely get your point. Yeah, sometimes go in and say, I'll make some sales for you, let you see how good I am, and then we can move to the next thing. In all honesty, John, I'm trying to avoid doing any of that.
I hear you, man.
Right.
You know me. I've had the benefit of us chatting, so you can do with it whatever.
But thank you.
I'm going to jump in with some recommendations and then I'm going to Jen. You might want to leverage some business directories and databases. Things like Inc. has a 500 list of annual fastest growing private companies that you might want to monitor. There are also the local business journals, especially the our local Washington Business Journal. They put out their lists so you can actually see stuff and identify companies in this marketplace. And if you subscribe, you can go back as far as their lists go back and just look at stuff. It's great. There are also financial databases like Priveco, Priv.co, which offers a detailed financial information on privately held companies, and of course Dun & Bradstreet. Beyond that, just quickly, a lot of the chambers may be able to help you. Industry associations, so the whole association area, there are sales associations that you can get into and get in front of these groups at sales. They do, conferences and other things for salespeople, and you can become a speaker. And in attending business expos and trade shows, and especially big ones where the mucky mucks, the sales guys that are in charge of things are there, not just their sales reps.
Right. No, all great ideas, Melinda. And honestly, part of the strategy is to kind of figure out and create that whole list of potential channels and then figure out what the right strategy is to go through those channels, right? Part of the struggle, FYI, is figuring out like who should we be really contacting in these companies, right? If it's another VP of sales, is he going to feel threatened? If it's so we need to be really careful. That's why we're trying to identify the right nexus point at where a company is, where they already don't have that level of infrastructure. And so, yeah, but I mean, having all those channels is absolutely crucial, and we'll have to go and identify what they are. But yeah, thank you. By the way, guys, I'm not writing stuff down because I'm going to get the recording of this, and I'll do it then when I want to pay attention. So,
Jen, you're next, then Dan, then John Norse, then Scott.
I was taking it very personally that you were not absolutely writing down our ideas. One question to clarify, James, to your comment a second ago. It sounds like, and maybe this is actually a questioning that sounds like a leading question. Are the CEOs who are the rainmakers that are trying to divest themselves from being the sole rainmakers? So they have a few people potentially, but they're nervous about letting go. Is that a segment you're thinking about, or is it more about an organization that has a small sales team, or they've hired people to go do this, but maybe with the pivot in the government space, or maybe they need to diversify their revenue streams. So now they need to bring someone like you in to help them expand their thinking and their sales strategy. Can you maybe talk to each of those segments? Because those are pretty niche, but you could do some pretty targeted messaging around those.
So it's a little bit of both. So we're in conversation with the prospect right now where the owner of the company and the president of the company are feeling they're getting sucked in too much to the sales part of the business. And so they wanted to bring us in to help not only develop the longer term strategy, but also work with the team kind of more hands-on from like situational selling, training, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that piece for sure. And to me, that's probably the area that we want to try and tackle the most. Like that's where I think I'd have the most amount of fun. And so there is that. What was the other one, Jen? Sorry.
Just the team who has a small sales group, but maybe they need help expanding their revenue streams, because the
Right.
market's a bit crazy or chaotic right now, especially if you're in DC and the GovCon space.
So what tends to happen is as companies are going through that start to grow phase, right? A lot of things change. And sometimes what changes is like, who is the customer? And they need to kind of be ready to pivot a little bit, or maybe the team themselves are just not having the skill set they need to get them to that next stage. So that's also opportunity, right? And so part of this is being able to get into the market, talk about this stuff, identify and have people go, oh, that's a problem that we have. But again, I think the biggest opportunity really is at the CEO level, who's too ingrained in the whole sales thing, but doesn't have a sales background to go, I need to pass this off. Like, we need to get the right skill set in. And I think that's probably where the biggest opportunity lies. But I could be completely wrong.
So next we've got Dan Lender, John Norris, Scott, and then I'm going to jump in again, unless somebody else is putting up their hand.
Thanks, Melinda. And James, it's good to see you. And I know that you know how to be successful, so I'm sure you will be. I want to pile on a little bit of what John Rutenberg said, in that the $3 million client will soon be the $5 million client as they grow. So with 3 million, you have a lot more targets out there. I know that you don't want to do sales. From my time in sales and technology, it was everyone benefited, though they would disagree, from the basic blocking and tackling. And so you don't want to do sales. I understand that. I think that a lot of companies need help with the tactics. A set of tactics become a strategy at some point. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people have the tools and enthusiasm, or they think they do, but they don't necessarily follow the tactics. We would always work from the end backwards to make sure we have enough runway to get the sale done or get whatever what we targeted complete. So I think I'm thinking you can help companies a lot with being successful. And once you get a few successes, then it becomes a math test. And it's like, they don't mind paying you because you're helping them make a lot of money, right? Or you're helping them grow. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely does. And I think there's ways to do that without actually being James out in the road, hitting the streets, banging on doors, that type of thing. And again, Dan, I'm early stage at this, right? It's been a couple of months of trying to flesh this stuff out a little bit. But what we believe, just based on conversations, that there are opportunities. Very few sales teams are high performance teams. Very few, right? And there's always opportunity. And the company we're talking to right now, the conversation. If I can get a 5% bump in your revenue just by showing your team how to sell better, that's $400,000 a year. That's why the numbers matter. Like, from a revenue standpoint, is to go, hey, what's the bump look like? Even a modest kind of 5%, which you can do in your sleep. So.
It's all a math test, and if math makes sense, then
it's all a math test, my friend, for sure. Yeah. But no, thanks, Dan.
Next, we've got John Norris, Scott. I'm going to do DJ because he hasn't asked anything yet, me, and then Jen.
I'm always scared when John asks questions.
Hey, James, I have a question. I'm trying to understand your business model. So I'm just using a hypothetical. Yep. I hire you. I pay you $10,000 a month. You come in and do some consulting, obviously, with me to help boost our sales. And then is your goal to have like a 6-month contract, a 12-month contract? Because you're claiming to be a fractional person to replace it, but yet if I want to be an ongoing entity and being successful, I want to have somebody in that role long term. Right. So I'm just trying. I'm going like, well, a good person costs me $250, and I know they're going to stick around for 10 years. I mean, you have the same propensity to fire me as I could fire you if the relationship isn't working out. I'm just trying. The fact that you're fractional and may cost less is fine, but at the end of the day, you and I both know anyone's going to pay for performance. So right. I'm just trying to understand how your revenue model would work. I mean, I'm between 500 and 5 million, and I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't understand it, to be very candid.
Right. So think it this way. You've got, in your position, you've got a sales team. right? But you don't have you don't have someone full-time yet, like a director of sales, managing and coaching and running that team. The idea and the way this generally works is you could bring me in as a fractional for 3 or 6 months to help you get to a point and bridge the gap between where you are to bringing someone in full-time. Or, and it happens in a lot of cases where the fractional thing works so well that they go, you know what, we're just going to keep you going on a fractional level. What we would look at is say, listen, you're going to do a minimum 3 months, because you need that just to start getting some traction, just to get some things in place and move. After that, it's like, do you want to do like a rolling 3-month contract, right? Or a 3-month retainer? What we see in the CFO world and the CIO world literally is once they've got past the idea that they need a full-time person, they're like, oh, this fractional thing actually works out well because we're getting the growth we want, we're getting the coaching of the team we want, we're getting the processes that we need. But I don't have the expense of a full-time, nor having to pay benefits, which, by the way, is a big deal for small bit paying all the benefits. So sometimes, John, what will happen is they'll just keep that fractional running, and until they get to a point, they go, you know what, maybe we need to make that move.
And that's where you'd make your money, ideally, is a longer term client. I don't see a successful business model of 3 months or 6 months. I mean, it's revenue, but you're not maximizing on your impact, nor, you're constantly looking for new clients.
It depends. Sometimes in a fractional world, John, they want to bring in on a specific project, right? So they might say, hey, we've got a 6-month project, and here's what we need. Here's like the 3, which is what's happening right now. There's like 4 things they're having a problem with. Can you come in and help us fix it? I'm like, sure. The challenge isn't the time scale. The challenge is having a predictable strategy for bringing on new prospects and new clients, so you're continually got that flow of 4 or 5 clients at one time, right? And so, if you work with someone for 6 months, that's great. If you work with them for a year, I don't know, I'd maybe get kind of bored, right? Like, I want to go do something else with some other people. But again, I don't know at this point. It to me, in that kind of director of sales role, I lean towards, hey, we'll help you bridge that gap between where you are to bring in someone in full time. And if that, it's like coaching. I don't want to have coaching clients forever. That's not the goal.
Time check, James.
Sorry.
You've got a lot of people
Sorry.
excited to ask more questions.
Sorry. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Next, we've got Scott, and then we've got DJ.
Good morning. I'm Scott. How is everybody? Hi, James. Thank you. Good to see you again. I manage a digital marketing and advertising agency here in Loudoun County. And we specialize with ad tech platform providers. There are 2 big components that make up the solution. One is called a DMP, a data management platform that is for B2C, but it's also for B2B. For B2C, we have 165 million household parcels that we in our database. And for people that want to reach specific homeowners in specific neighborhoods based on selection criteria, we can nail that. What we do is we use demographic data, purchase history, search history, and location data to geofence households and serve up programmatic advertising on all of their devices, smartphone, tablet, desktop, and even videos on connected TV.
Okay.
That's the premise. Where I'm going with this is that it's also applicable for B2B. We have access to third-party data that is industry specific, much like Miss Melinda was suggesting, researching and finding. A lot of this information is available. People self-identify to be, I don't know, a procurement officer or whatever business title you're trying to reach at a specific company. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you know who your target is, who your buyer persona is and the companies you're trying to reach. The data is available. You just need to go after it and specifically hone in on your targets, and then serve up some advertising to reach them. Build some brand awareness, get some visitors to your website, convert them, have a chat bot, talking to them, asking and answering questions, scheduling appointments, making phone calls. So that's what I would recommend is you look at the DMP and the B2B third-party data that's available for companies like yourself.
That's great, Scott. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Scott, DJ, me, and then Jen.
Thank you so much, James. I was curious if you had explored any kind of partnership with groups like maybe private equity firms. So part of the goal of private equity firms is actually helping and supporting the companies that they want to invest in. So what we're finding is that more venture capital, private equity is getting leaner and leaner in terms of the full-time staff they want to take on. So building a partnership with a VC group that's doing investing or a private equity that's doing investing might actually be a fruitful relationship where they might want you to work with a series of clients. So that's something to think about, especially since those are going to be groups that are trying to grow quickly and that probably have very small teams that may not have the expertise. They may also be very young in their careers and trying to grow and be hungry for growth. So that might be something to consider.
I'm still pretty young. Just saying.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
No,
but
guys,
they're
great.
looking for fractional time, right? They're not looking to hire full-time staff.
Yeah. No, so I have a client who's in that space up in New York, and he and I have to have a conversation about somehow that might work strategically. But yeah, it's a great avenue to go down. So yeah, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
DJ, you're next.
Yeah, James, great presentation, and kind of Scott had both great kind of advice of things to find, but really, so traditionally companies will hire an FSE to fix a sales problem quickly, kind of like you mentioned already in your presentation. So finding that problem and fixing it quickly, then teaching. So I think you also kind of nailed what you really specifically want to touch on. You don't want to essentially help them with sales or go out and make sales, but more either specifically sales team coaching or CRM optimization or lead generation strategy or something specific. But it's, I think, really honing in on who your customer avatar is, and just one part of that will help you probably find that clarity a little bit better. But it sounds like streamlining the sales cycle seems to be like what you want to work in. So maybe just honing your target, or maybe they're a newer sales, like you said with the example you're talking with the president or vice president, who it seems like they're getting pulled into sales. A lot of startups and newer companies are stuck that way until they find somebody they can rely on. That could be a good bridge where you guys fit in. But other than that, that was great advice.
No, thanks, DJ. And I do believe that a big part of this whole question thing is getting that level of clarity on the ideal client and the avatar. It's the things we would coach our clients through. Ideal client, what's your problem you're solving? What's your mess? Like we're trying to get all that tidied up, but it's easier to do it for someone else than it is to do it for yourself, which is why I love having this. This is great. So thanks, DJ. Appreciate it.
So I also agree about strategic partnerships, and I put down a few ideas because you can align with agencies and service providers like fractional CFOs and EOSs, implementers. They work with companies that are already scaling and need the sales growth. HubSpot and Salesforce consultants, another really good source. And a lot of marketing agencies are tasked with things like that. And the last one I have is HR and recruiting firms, and maybe even doing something with SHRM.
Yeah. We spoke
about with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jen. She has a question, and then she's going to ask you the last question of the day.
Awesome.
Since we all seem to be chatty, I'm going to share 4 things I would recommend. One, and I have specific people in mind, so James, I'll introduce you. lots of firms like CPA firms are looking for guest speakers as a client engagement.
Right.
And so I would think about developing a talk around how fractional sales can help you get over that next revenue hurdle. So something to think about. From a content standpoint, I might write something about why you need key person insurance for your sales team or something like that, key man insurance, and then collaborate with business insurance providers. I've got a person for you for that. Business attorneys. So folks, I mentioned Wayne Zell earlier, business attorneys who are helping clients plan for exit in 3 to 5 years. The one thing they absolutely want to do to increase the value of their business is embed the sales and client relationship process and IP into their business. So any lawyers who focus on exit planning, absolutely consider it. And along the same line, M&A boutique firms. If companies are helping you be acquired or acquire others, having the sales pipeline and having that codified and managed well, that might be something where from a messaging standpoint can be really powerful to consider. And again, very targeted strategic partnerships for those different groups, but they have the ear of the CEO or the CFO, and I definitely would think about talking with them.
That's awesome. No, I love that, Jen, and thanks for that. Just we've already started having conversation with a couple of people in the CFO space and the CIO space to actually set up a little team for the three of us to explore opportunities. And one of the gals, she's already got like 84 CFOs placed across the US and Canada. So she's already in that world. But yeah, all of those things are great ideas. So thanks so much.
Yes, make other people help do your work.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, with that,
yeah,
Jen?
let's get back to the main question. What can our 1 Million Cups community help you with today?
So a couple of things. If you do have an idea or something you've thought about that hasn't been captured here, then please, if you can email me, or even if you want to call me and talk about it, I'm totally up for doing that. And obviously the second thing is, if you come across an opportunity or you hear something where you think this might be a place that James can maybe entertain or look at, just let me know. I'm not asking you to sell for me. I can do that. I can do the work. But the identification of maybe a company or business that you're in that we can maybe have a conversation about would be absolutely awesome. And I'd just like to end by saying, I appreciate everything that you guys have done. Thanks for all the questions and the guidance. And I'll go through this and create a strategy around everything that you've said. But thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, James. So with that, we'll get things wrapped up here. So next week's presenter, we've got Guts. So please come back next week and have some more fun, learn some things, and help Guts out next week. Also, we've got some upcoming events. The QR code down in the right-hand corner, I think, is for the Central Fairfax Chamber, and a listing of events with them. And then on this page, you can see there are a number of events which you can take advantage of.
And John, on the job fairs, there's a typo on the last bullet. That's my fault. That the Chantilly High School Job Fair is actually the 11th of March.
Okay. And not the 1st. Okay. The 11th of March. Great. Thank you, Amy. And with that, our presenter schedule, we've got next week, Guts, as I mentioned, and then in March, we've got some openings. So I'd love to have you participate. If you're thinking about presenting, we do make it very easy. So please take advantage of that. And then I believe, is that QR code, Jen, to register? Is that registration?
This QR code will show you how to apply through the onemillioncups.com/Fairfax page. It will also show you a button that if you fill out the form, it magically makes your slides. So we really do work hard to make life easy. I would scan that QR code and just hold on to that link. You can also follow us on social and do all kinds of stuff on that.
Great. Yeah. So if you have slide apprehension, we try to take care of that. And with that, help us spread the good word for 1 million cups. Take advantage of all the social media platforms, and we even give you a QR code that puts all that in one place. Again, trying to make it as easy as possible. So spread the good word about 1 million.